How do I choose the right tax preparer? Good afternoon, this is Arash Shahriari, your tax preparer, and in this video I want to go over that, and from multiple directions we're going to approach this matter. Two things, please, at minimum, require them to provide you with. Okay, number one, give you a copy of your tax return, your complete copy of tax return when they file it for you. Okay. Two is to have them put their information, that is their name, their address, and their PTIN number. PTIN number is the preparer's tax ID number. Okay. This is a number that IRS issues to anyone who, regardless of their credential to background, even if they don't get compensated. Okay, this is another misunderstanding that is often out there. The person who's doing your taxes, even if they don't get compensated for preparing, you don't pay them, okay, they're still obligated by IRS to obtain this number if they're helping people, assisting them filing their, preparing their taxes. So this is two things that I want you to at least take away from this video, if nothing else. All right. With that being said, I want to go through some details here, and I appreciate if you bear with me through the entire video, because this is a very important thing that you have to repeat every year, likely for the rest of your life, and could potentially impact you in a good or a bad way, depending on the way that you choose to. Okay, so number one, check the tax preparer's qualification. Okay, so there are 5 ways or credentials that a tax preparer in the United States can take on to work, prepare taxes. Number one is a tax attorney. Okay, so if they're a tax attorney, they have to be licensed by the State Bar Association. The other way, if they're a CPA or a certified public accountant, that is that, basically they have to be licensed by the State Board of Accountancy. The third one is the enrolled agent. Enrolled agent is the highest level or credential that a tax preparer, specialist in tax preparer can achieve and obtain, and that is granted by the federal government, that is IRS. This is another thing that I want to clarify. So CPAs are licensed and attorneys are licensed by the states. By the enrolled agents, other than their credentials, they have this luxury of basically on a federal level, that is being able to work with anyone in any state, to prepare their taxes and also present them before the IRS. The other scenario is what IRS have put together as the 18-hour course training, which is called annual filing season program. Now, basically, people by taking this 18-hour can pass the minimum proficiency in tax preparation by IRS, and this grants them the ability to, being listed on the IRS online directory, and also be able to, with a minimum credential to operate. The fifth one is when somebody actually does not have either one of these. They just plain out, never got neither one of those, basically, and they just have a PTIN number. Minimally, that's the thing. This is my main point. They have to have a PTIN number, okay? No matter who helps you, even if your son or daughter, if it's your neighbor, please do ask them to have a PTIN number and put that. Just because they don't ask for money doesn't mean that, they should not be put on their tax return and sign it. Okay. So now, before I continue, one important thing here. Just because somebody doesn't have a credential, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean anything negative. Might be that, they might be in a different profession and they still pursuing this on a sidekick, side hustle, if you will. It doesn't necessarily mean that, they don't have the experience or the knowledge. I mean, even what I'm trying to say is that the people who, let's say they're CPAs, for example, CPAs have different specialties, okay? Just somebody because they bear the title or the credential CPA, that doesn't mean that they're specialized in taxes. CPAs can be specialized in auditing, for example, or different areas of accountancy. So what I'm trying to say is that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but minimally, whoever does your taxes, they need to have a PTIN number. That's a must thing, okay? So another thing is that running a check on the tax preparer's history, okay? Now, what does that mean? That means that, it could be simply starting off with asking your friends, peers, that people you know of during your network, trying to get a sense or idea of the person that you're running to and do your taxes, or who they are, if they have any information about this person, checking the reviews on Google about that person, trying to locate them on Google minimally, that is at least their firm, their business, what they do. BBB, Better Bureau of Business, that might be another site. Although as a business person on myself, I'm going to have to say this from the beginning, because to be all honest and fair, BBB do charge a fee for people to get on board and be there. That is, oftentimes these extra things are simply bought. I don't want to say that in a negative way. What I mean is that by simply just paying an amount of money, you can just come on board. This doesn't give anybody any credential or anything. However, being on Business Better Bureau site, for example, it does give opportunity to people to perhaps have a negative complaint, or likewise a compliment. They can have this established account of that person, so under that they can file something that other people can also benefit from. If that person has a designation and a credential, if they're a tax attorney, for example, you can check them with the State Bar Association. If they're a CPA, you can check them with the State Accountancy Board. If they're an enrolled agent, you can verify them through the IRS's site often. How do you say that? Like I said, minimally, you can ask your friends, the people that you know of in your network, and try to get the sense. Just look them up online, see what they're at. If they have a website, maybe, there's some reviews out there about this thing. That would really, really does help. The other criteria that you can look into that is the fee structure that the person charges to do your taxes. First thing that comes as an alert, an alarm to the mind. If that person promises you a certain amount of refund, that is, this is a big thing. This is a big alarm, okay? Please do not work with somebody like that. If somebody is in this business of returning money to people, and that's what their promise is, and that is the highlight of the work that they do, please do not work with them, and please do not approach somebody who prepares taxes asking them, hey, how much can you return to me? This is something that oftentimes I get from people. Hey, how much can you give back to me? Okay, this is not what the tax preparer is supposed to do. Their goal and their job is to be doing your taxes in compliance. This is what the job of a tax preparer is. Of course, if you're entitled to certain credits, whatever they are, based on your thing, absolutely, they have the utmost responsibility to also include those in your taxes and make sure that you are entitled to every penny that you could get. But if you're putting that as the priority, and that person, or in the other direction, is presenting that as the selling point of their service, you are on a wrong track to begin with. You are a wrong head start. So this is one thing that I want to say. So that being said, if the second phase of the conversation, the person tells you that their fees is based on a percentage of the it's funny as hell. I'm not even sure what to say. I've heard so many crazy stories in this few years that I've been in this business. I just don't understand how is this possible, how the this government even permits this thing to happen. I know there's a lot of privacy laws that perhaps the government might cite as a reason why they cannot have the supervision that is necessity to try to combat these issues. But I think nonetheless that is something that is one side of the equation, and the other thing is that people that I don't know how they feel so liberal to do this, but unfortunately this is something that isn't out there. So do not pay somebody, go to somebody who tells you that they will charge on a percentage of the refund that they can obtain for you. Okay, usually most tax preparers they work on a per form basis. Okay, they have a fee schedule that outlines the common tax forms that are used to prepare personal's tax return, and based on that they will tell you how much they charge. Now of course there's a factor of basically complexity. If you have taxes that require more time, they need to explain to you something, or you ask them basically for some explanation, that is you're taking extra of their time and they're asking in return for benefit of the what they're giving to you. That's something that can be counted on top of that. But definitely if you run into somebody who does that, definitely stay away from them. Speaking of that, one thing that you can also do is that you can shop around. You can minimally, just at least to get a sense, you can call a few tax preparation places and just ask them, hey, I have this, maybe I have a W-2, I have a self-employment from Uber, how much do you charge to do this for me? Okay, and just try to compare them. Okay, at least since somebody is really too much out of the way, you can just get a sense that probably that's not the right person for me. Or in a similar manner, say that's the thing, I'm not trying to based on the fee of somebody determine that they're necessarily doing something wrong, but these might be some implications, that is somebody's price is too low, they're too high. There could be potentially some issues with that. One thing that I do want to mention while we're at this conversation is give you some examples. For example, some of the tax preparers might even not charge you money, but especially if you happen to be a new immigrant, or even somebody who is well aware of what they're doing. Basically, they get you in a sneaky way to sign a form that, in a very legal manner, you're granting them to take, God knows, maybe $600, $1,000 of the money that you're entitled to go into their bank. Okay, you know what I mean? It's a big chunk of money that you feel like you're not paying any of these services. You feel like maybe this is some kind of a government establishment, or they're getting their money from somewhere else. You're right, they are getting money from somewhere else that is out of your refund by having you in a very legal manner sign a form and taking your refund away. Now, one thing that you could also ask for is e-file. So often people who are in this business, they have the credential obtained from IRS to be able to directly be the what we call ERO, the electronic return originator, person that basically would show their name as the e-file person on the tax return, and they would be the ones who would be transmitting your file to the IRS for electronic filing. This is a good implication. If the person has that, that is a big plus. Okay, speaking of that, if they're using a end user tax software and they don't have this e-file credential, that was one of the ways that their information would not show on the tax return. So even if that's the case, please ask them to sign that return, put their information, and also put their PTIN number on it. Either way, the two things I said in the beginning, please, at least if nothing else, please dig to those out of this conversation that I'm having today. So another thing, if they have a office, okay, that is, they're available after the tax filing season. You can access them. You have a connection. You can establish some kind of a, if you have a question or, you have some letters, you can reach out to them. So a lot of tax preparers might even work from home. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But if the person does not have any regular means of communication, that is, a phone number assigned to this work that they might do, or an address that you can minimally at least communicate with them, that is also something that you need to take into consideration. Okay, oftentimes a lot of preparers that are not scrupulous, they have just rent out some office space from somewhere that they're not regular there, and you won't see them again very likely. They just never they just disappear from the planet Earth, at least to the part that you're concerned about. So that's another thing that also by itself is not a negative implication, but also take that into consideration. Okay, so the other thing is that, does the tax preparer ask you questions about records of your income and expenses? Okay, if the tax preparer does not ask you to begin with for identification, okay, all the tax preparers are required to check your driver's license, preferably as a form of ID, a valid form of ID, and also a copy of your social security card. That is, then again, if for example, social security card is not accessible, some alternative like a bank receipt that shows the your name on it, for example, or the last 4 digits of your social, or complete one, some alternative financial document, for example. Long story short, that is something that to begin with they all have to ask you. Okay, they have to ask you for your W-2, your 1099, your receipt of your incomes. Okay, some forms that basically attest to the income that you're claiming for your return. Likewise, if you're self-employed and you have some expenses, they have to ask you. If they don't ask you for the copy records of your expenses, show you something, if they don't at least review it with you, if they don't go over it, they don't ask you, like for example, Mr. John, did you have any wages paid to somebody to assist you in your work? Did you pay for your cell phone? Did you pay for buying equipments? Did you pay for your car? Did you pay for your home office? Did you pay for such and such? If they don't even ask you these questions, this is a big red flag. Okay, any preparer that is compliant and is in this business as a professional must ask questions and have a tangible copy of all the records that based on them they're filing your return. Okay, another thing that you could do is that basically just ask them simple questions, nothing serious necessarily or incriminating necessarily, just simple questions. Hey, where can I find you? Do you have a website? Are you listed on white pages or yellow pages? I'm sorry, yellow pages. How long you been doing this? What's your major? Did you study? Things like that. Simple questions, nothing necessarily serious. It's just some things to get an idea. How many returns do you file? How long you been doing this? In a similar manner, you can ask them, do you have any designation? Have you taken any certificate in this course, in this profession, for example? Very simple questions that, in a psychological manner can give you some sense to where this is heading to. So, these are the few things that you can work on them. Now, continuing on. So, another thing, never sign a blank return. So there might be a situation that because you're busy or you're dropping off the forms, the tax preparer might say, hey, okay, you know what, this is a form, I'm going to fill out all the information just for the convenience factor. Just go ahead and sign on the bottom and date it, and I'll take care of the rest. Never. Please do not ever do this, okay? This is another serious blow that you're yourself, you're putting on your own self. So please do not do that. That's another seriously wrong thing that you can do. As I said from the beginning, as the tax preparer, you have full responsibility for what you do. There's a circular that outlines the compliant articles that taxpayers need to be abide by, and it's called Circular 203. I just want to read you an excerpt from this so you have a sense of the level of responsibility that is potentially on somebody who does your tax preparation. So I'm quoting basically, may rely in good faith without verification upon information furnished by the clients, but may not ignore the implications of other information actually known. So just reading this quick excerpt, and something else that I'm going to just mention as well. The tax preparers are not even by the IRS standard required to verify anything. What does that mean? That means that if tomorrow something goes wrong, they do not have any responsibility. The responsibility is entirely on you as the taxpayers, okay? Another addition to this responsibility clarification is when you fill out the form 8879, which is the e-file authorization signature, okay? There's a clause, when you read it in entirety, it will tell you that you are basically certifying that you have reviewed and examined a copy of your return, and you acknowledge that is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. When you sign that form, officially, aside from what I just quoted you from Circular 203, you're carrying on the entire burden of your tax responsibility on yourself. So be careful what you do. Don't be lured into somebody who offers you lower rate, free event, things of that nature, giving you a high refund. Work on somebody who's ethical, does something right. It's not worth it. The tax stuff, or I'm not trying to pull in the fear factor, scare anybody. That is not, God forbid, that's not what I'm going to. I don't want anybody to do it to me. I don't want to do it anyway. That's not my purpose. All I'm just trying to say is not worth it. If you happen to go through the audit, one time it happens, you'll be the one who would be responsible. You would be the one who would be facing monetary and criminal penalties. So be very careful about what you do. That's actually set as the ones that I have covered. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions and you want to file your taxes, I'm available all year. I'm specialized in personal taxes, self-employment, Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, DoorDash, all these goodies that people have to deal with. Business taxes, LLCs, corporations, S-corps. I do all of them, and I'll be happy to help you, and look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.